This is Sustainability Forward with Rishi and Carmini.
Hello and welcome to Sustainability Forward, the podcast where we review multiple aspects of sustainability. And specifically, we try to understand how sustainability is being shaped inside business, inside industry, as well as how sustainability is impacting leadership and leadership styles. I'm your host, Rishi.
And I'm Carmine. So today's conversation sits right at the intersection of complexity, transformation, and leadership.
So sustainability is easy to discuss in simple settings. We've all talked about sustainability in multiple ways. It becomes much more interesting, we think, when you compare how companies are thinking about it, how they're going into the deeper questions about change, about scrutiny, long-term value creation, and many other surrounding aspects. And that is exactly what today's guest brings, which is basically a very distinct perspective on sustainability to our episode on Sustainability Forward.
So today we are very delighted to welcome Jennifer Motles. And Jennifer joined Philip Morris International PMI in 2015 and has served as the company's Chief Sustainability Officer since October 2020. In this role, she leads PMI sustainability agenda as core driver of business strategy and long-term value creation. She oversees the design and deployment of PMI Value Plan 2030 Plus, grounded in a double materiality assessment and structured around 6 strategic priorities: consumers, circularity, own workforce, workers in the value chain, climate, and nature. Her leadership is central to how PMI embeds sustainability into its long-term business strategy, driving sustainable business through value creation. During her tenure at PMI, Jennifer has played a pivotal role in shaping the company's statement of purpose and expanding its sustainability strategy through Value Plan 2030 Plus. Jennifer holds a Juris Doctor degree from Universidad de Chile, Escuela de Reggio, and a Master of Laws degree from University of California, Berkeley School of Law. Jennifer, welcome to Sustainability Forward.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Jennifer. So to start with, Jennifer, maybe tell us a little bit about your own journey and what brought you into sustainability leadership. Our audience is very curious about these things, so it would be great to learn about your journey into sustainability leadership.
It's a difficult question to summarize. I will try my best. You tell me how I do. I've been in this role as Chief Sustainability Officer of PMI for 5 years now. I joined the company 10 years ago. Now I'm going to turn 11. And it was always, I like to say, in one way or another, working in sustainability, even though sustainability did not exist as such at PMI back then in 2015. And frankly, I don't think sustainability existed in the world, in any corporation, in the way that we understand it in 2015. But in terms of my values and the way that I understood what businesses can do for society and in what context they exist, I think that I was always working in one way or another on sustainability. My background is, as you said before, I'm a lawyer. I specialize in international law and human rights. And so I always had this feeling and this belief, really, that businesses can do so much more than just serve their shareholders and generate profit. I think that business can be a huge force for good. And so it was driven by that belief that I joined this company, and in different positions, in different capacities, eventually got to the role where I am today.
Interesting. Very, very interesting background.
And let's move then towards this journey when you joined PMI. So just for our audience, it's a big company, but can you help us just to quick summarize what you are busy with over there? Well, just to describe a little bit the company and then move into your role as a Chief Sustainability Officer. what
Sure.
it means in practice in a global
What does it mean in
context.
practice? So, PMI, for those who don't know it, is has been traditionally known for being a cigar company. This is historically what made Philip Morris International famous, but I think today that is no longer the case. Actually, the company has been going through a long journey, a very radical journey of transformation to no longer base its success on making or selling cigarettes. And so, in that context of transformation, what does sustainability mean? And I think that for a company like PMI, but frankly as a case study, is a beautiful example of rethinking what is your role in society with how you operate, how you define success, what products do you bring to society, and how are you able to exist while respecting environmental and social boundaries. So what is my job as CSO? This is what you ask me. In this company and in the way that we understand sustainability is how to think about this company to be successful today, but also to be successful in the long term, understanding that many things are outside of our control and will change, and that we have the opportunity, but also the duty to build resilience, to adapt, to ensure that we are complying with what regulation is coming, to mitigate risk, and to understand technology as a huge opportunity for innovation and growth so that we can bring more value to society and the planet.
Very interesting. Jennifer, both of us, Carmina and I, come from the energy industry background, and when we say energy or sustainability in the energy industry context, we can identify exactly why, right? In the production of fuels, typically you emit a lot, and then the fuels themselves also emit a lot, right? Which both need to therefore be abated in some way. One of the questions that many of our listeners might be asking is, why does a company like PMI care about sustainability? All of us probably know the most famous brands that the company has, but why does it care about sustainability? And you said, this changed a few years ago. What brought about that change?
It's a great question, and I love it that you phrase it in the context of energy, because what you're hinting there is that transition, right? You're talking about, you actually said it, you said this need to abate, this need to understand, account, and recognize the impacts of what is being produced, and then the impacts of what is that production having when it's being used. And there is this fundamental need in the energy sector, even though I don't work there, to think about how success looks like in the future without having such a negative impact on the planet, particularly on the environment. And there are for sure parallels that you can draw with the tobacco industry, or particularly with PMI, because this is what makes PMI so unique. This deep acknowledgement that the company had based its success on a legacy product that was very harmful to the health of the consumers, and that it decided, not because it became mandatory, but because we believed it was our duty to invest in R&D, to first understand where the harms of smoking are coming from, and secondly, understand how can we avoid or reduce significantly those harms by developing and commercializing better alternatives than continuous smoking. And I should be clear here, because it's not like PMI is shifting to a place where it's selling products that are risk-free or healthy, right? That's not the case. What PMI is doing is to understanding consumer behavior very well, understanding also very well where the harms of smoking are coming from, investing in R&D to have better alternatives to continue smoking. And the thing that might surprise you, that most people don't know, is that there's over 1 billion people smoking cigarettes in the world. These are not my numbers, these are WHO numbers. And importantly, these were the numbers when I joined PMI in 2015. And these were the projections to 2025. There was a WHO report published then that said the number of smokers is 1.1 billion. The projections are to remain steady by 2025, which was the case, and now past 2025, the number of smokers remains the same. And so that creates a big fundamental question, what is happening? Because if we all know that smoking is not good, why are people not smoking less? And I think it's a combination of things, and this brings me to the origin of your question. What does sustainability mean to PMI, and what is the parallel with the energy industry? When you want to create a change that is so complex, like, for example, transitioning people away from fossil fuels to alternative sources of energy, or when you want people to stop smoking, you're really talking about the need for systems change. And it's not something that one company can create in a silo. It's something that really requires a paradigm shift, and all different parts of society need to work together. You need the scientific community, you need regulation that can nudge consumer behavior, you need infrastructure so that this transition can happen, you need media, you need you need academia, and then of course you need business that has an important resource of ingenuity to invest in innovation and find better alternatives. And so here is where, for me, what PMI is doing when it comes to sustainability is so powerful, because it's not like we're taking sustainability issues that have become quote unquote popular, like addressing climate change or like addressing human rights, which, by the way, we're doing, and they're very important. But this is not the most material issue. This is not the biggest negative externality that we create. So where is that biggest negative externality? It's the health impacts of our products.
And as you were talking, you mentioned a few words starting from system change, Jennifer. Actually, probably first episode, one of the first episodes we did with Richie in 3-4 years ago was around the system change importance in terms of sustainability.
Right.
Because it's one of the reasons also why we started this podcast, because we're bringing together, as you mentioned, people from business, from academia, policymakers,
right? Consumers, businesses. Exactly. And people know, I think that that is the common denominator when it comes to sustainability. So be it climate change, be it poverty, inequality, or smoking, these are all systemic issues. And so it's unrealistic to expect that one company is going to fix it by itself. It's also unrealistic to believe that the problem can be fixed without involving businesses. So how can you create an environment where really all different stakeholders from all different parts, with different expertise and with different mandates, can come around the table and together decide how to change the status quo? This is what for me is fascinating. And you can take this recipe, let's say, this premise, and apply it to any systemic issue. So if you've been in the energy, you guys come from the energy sector, and you've been really focusing about how to tackle climate change efficiently, probably you've reached the same conclusion, right? It's not just about energy companies moving away from fossil fuels or disclosing information or having the right kind of regulation that mandates it. You also need infrastructure. You also need to change consumer demand. You also need media to participate. So it's so complex and so messy that I think that there's also a humbling component of understanding that change really doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of time to achieve.
And there is another dimension that is around timing.
Right.
Sense of urgency. And you mentioned transformation. And it's a word that keeps coming, I see also in the word, in the work you produce. I very like much how you introduce the change in motion argument, and how it's linked to transformation, a transformation that is not just a project, doesn't have a beginning of an end,
right?
More a kind of a process. So can you talk a little bit about this aspect?
Sure. That's really nice, and thank you for asking me about it, because indeed the company declared this mission, this purpose about moving away from cigarettes for the first time publicly in 2016, so 10 years ago. And that transformation is very much ongoing. So along the way, I think that we all realize that a transformation is a project that begins and that ends, but this is not really the ethos of what PMI is about. We are really changing constantly. We're changing to adapt to a world that is changing very fast, to consumer demands that are changing very fast, to policy and regulation that is evolving very quickly. And the key to being successful is to anticipate a lot of these changes, to be able to keep the pulse on where the world is going. And for that, you need to be continuously in motion. You need to be changing all the time. And I think that the companies that are able to A, accept this as a reality, and B, are successful at doing it, are the ones who are going to be around in the long term. Otherwise, it's not going to work out.
Now, moving from the idea of the vision for sustainability, why sustainability is important, let's focus a little bit on sustainability leadership. Our understanding from having been involved in these kind of projects is that it really requires a lot of coalition building, but also, should I say, the practical approach of understanding where the trade-offs are. How do you bring kind of different parts of the organization behind you in trying to achieve the vision of sustainability for PMI?
I think that I agree with what you're saying, but I think that framing it that way would already put me in a place of us against them, you know?
Yeah.
And I genuinely don't think that that's the case. I think that this only works when you have the complete and genuine endorsement from senior leadership, in my case, from our CEO, from our CFO, and importantly from our board, that believe that accounting for other forms of capital that are not just financial capital, like natural capital, like social capital, like human capital, like intellectual capital, are as important as guarding and preserving and growing our financial capital. So the health of our company, the success of our company, does not rest on just financial success. It rests on the healthiness of the relationships that we have and how we protect the resources that we rely on. And so if you, and by you, I mean the leadership of a company, believes this, then ultimately what you're doing is that you're putting someone in charge to execute that, right? So it's not me versus the machine trying to build a coalition. It's me with the mandate of our senior leadership developing a strategy that can successfully integrate these considerations so that we can be successful in the long term. So what I'm trying to say is that it all starts by how does the company understand value creation? If anyone who's done an MBA and has gone to business school, there's a lot of talk about creating value and how you account for it. And the traditional way of accounting for value and creating value and valuing a company is through financial capital and how you grow it. But the truth is that there are other forms of capital that are as relevant for the success of the business. And these are many of the capitals that are managed by our sustainability strategy. So everything related to the natural resources that our company relies on, in our case, a company that has a heavy supply chain based on agriculture. Understanding that we are relying on water, that we are relying on a tobacco crop, that we are relying on the fertility of the soil, that we are relying on forests, and preserving natural ecosystems and ensuring that we're managing, that we're mitigating the impacts we're creating, and that we're adapting appropriately. Again, it's not a me versus them trying to convince that this is good for the company. It's genuinely being business savvy and understanding that ultimately this is about mitigating risk. This is about complying with regulation that is on the way or is already there. It's about operational efficiency. It's about resource optimization. And it's about investing in innovation and growth for value creation ultimately. So when you see it this way, you understand that it's really one whole organization rowing in that same direction.
And it takes a lot of courage also to move everybody in the same direction, as you said, in the same motion. Now, How do you think, Jennifer, about credibility and accountability in a way that focuses on outcomes and evidence rather than labels?
I think that this is really important. Rishi was talking about trade-offs before. I didn't mention it, but your question actually ties to that. I think that everything in life is about trade-offs. Everything in life is about compromise, not just sustainability. And so in an ideal world, things would function in a specific way and everybody would be happy. In an ideal world, cigarettes wouldn't exist anymore. In an ideal world, we would have managed to make cigarettes obsolete. By the way, PMI is not the only company that is selling cigarettes, so it doesn't just depend on us. Many years ago, but it's not as easy, it's not as straightforward, and understanding how bumpy that road is and how complex the journey becomes, it's a very, very important part of managing managing your work, managing expectations, and understanding success. So for sure, credibility comes from accountability, for saying, this is what I would like to achieve, this is what I can control, and this is outside of my control, this is outside of my sphere of influence. And I think that many companies are very shy about talking about their limitations. They don't want to talk about what they're unable to do, because it will make them look weak or not capable or not championing enough certain topics. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that talking about your sphere of influence shows a very deep awareness of the complexity of the issues that you're trying to tackle. So what I try to do when we talk about transformation particularly, but not only, any sustainability issue, is to say, well, we would like to achieve net zero by 2040. We would like to make cigarettes obsolete. This is how I will show you that I want that to happen. Look at 99% of my R&D spend going into this new business. Look at where my capex is going. Look at my commercial expenditure. Look at the transformation of factories that used to make cigarettes and not make cigarettes anymore. Look at the volume of cigarettes that we were making year on year decreasing. Everything that is under control, we're accelerating to the max. But some things are outside of our control. So if a country regulates to ban smoke-free products and we cannot sell them, what else are we going to sell if not? And so I think that talking about those problems actually creates the opportunity for dialogue to try to understand, back to your point about credibility, trust, accountability, and trade-offs, what is it that you can do, what is it that you cannot do, and what is the other part willing to do if they are serious about achieving that change. If I take it out of tobacco and to energy that you guys are more familiar with, if you think about reducing fossil fuel consumption, but you have people that don't want to, I'm giving a very basic example, but people don't want to switch to electric vehicles, or cities don't have the infrastructure to charge electric vehicles, the percentage of people switching to electric vehicles is going to be significantly lower than if you equip a city with the infrastructure for that transition. And a company alone, it cannot do that, right? So you really need all players around the table to talk about what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and again, what are the trade-offs? Where is it that you compromise? And how does the pace of change really look like? Because sometimes we were talking about courage, there's also something very humbling about the pace of change. You can accelerate to a degree, but the pace of change is the pace of change. It cannot go faster than where it can go. And realizing that also allows you to manage expectations in terms of when is it that we're going to arrive to that desired outcome.
Excellent. Jennifer, as we come to the close of this episode, maybe let's ask you about advice that you would give to people, particularly in the sustainability domain, who are trying to create meaningful change, specifically in large and complex organizations.
It's a nice question. Thank you for asking me. I think that I would say don't give up. Don't lose hope. And your work matters. I think that it's easy to go and work in those places where things are easy and everything is flowing because there's no complications. It takes a very special kind of bravery to go into complex and complicated places and try to change them. And for that, kudos to you. Don't give up.
Good note to end the episode on, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us
Thanks to
today.
you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. I mean, what I'm taking away from this episode is that sustainability narrative or leadership is not about easy or clean answers. It is about actually doing the transformation work from within, making these practical trade-offs, building credibility through evidence. And as you said, staying focused on long-term value creation. So it's been a great episode on our side. Thanks again for being with us. And thanks to everyone of you listening to Sustainability Forward.
You've been listening to Sustainability Forward. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, share, and subscribe. You can find us at sustainabilityforward.com, on all major podcast platforms, and on LinkedIn under Sustainability Forward, the podcast.